Harris heads to Southeast Asia in search of a foreign policy win amid Afghanistan crisis. Harris will have dual responsibilities largely unfamiliar to her in the 7 months she's been in office: deliver a foreign policy win for an administration in crisis and embody Biden's call to pivot U.S. foreign policy focus to counter a rising China. Allies and experts say Harris will now face enhanced pressure to convey to the Southeast Asian nations that the U.S. is sincere in its long-term commitment to the region, as well as convincing them of U.S. competence. It's going to be a real sticking point for her to exude that America is here and we're committed to the things that we say we're committed to, the source added. After departing Washington on Friday, Harris will land in Singapore on Sunday before traveling to Vietnam later in the week. On Monday in Singapore, she will meet with U.S. sailors aboard the USS Tulsa in a visit to Changi Naval Base, becoming the highest-ranking official to address troops in person as the crisis in Afghanistan plays out, an official said. The vice president will also visit troops after her time abroad, delivering remarks to service members stationed at Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam in Honolulu, Hawaii. White House officials say Harris's overarching mission is to shore up relationships with regional partners. She will focus on regional security issues amid concerns over China's territorial claims in the South China Sea, economic priorities, including supply chain issues like global chip production, climate change, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Officials say Harris will remain engaged on the issue of Afghanistan on her trip to Singapore and Vietnam as she seeks to show the U.S. commitment to the Indo-Pacific region. There was no discussion about postponing the trip, officials said, after the fall of Kabul. The long-awaited turn toward China. The American withdrawal from Afghanistan comes as the Biden administration has sought to focus its global priorities on countering autocracies like China and Russia.
Much of the administration's work has concentrated on deepening regional partnerships, including with Japan and South Korea, to present a united front regarding China, a message Harris's trip is likely to reinforce. A key pillar of our China policy is to work our partners and allies, which is what we have been doing since day one of the administration, a senior administration official said. We are working with partners and allies to uphold the international rules-based order so it can continue to provide security and prosperity for American workers and families and for people around the world. President Joe Biden has centered his domestic economic policy agenda around beefing up the country's infrastructure and manufacturing ability to compete with China, making it no secret he intends to fight the battles of the next 20 years instead of the last, a part of his reason for withdrawing from Afghanistan. But following a chaotic drawdown in Afghanistan that has, at times, echoed images from the Vietnam War, allies around the globe have been left questioning U.S. competence and commitment. He added, "Our actions consistent with its rhetoric, and when is the United States finally going to begin devoting the kind of time, energy, resources, and leadership to Asia it's been talking about for almost a decade now?" Maduro said Harris will be responsible for convincing the leaders of both countries that the time is now. There will also be heightened pressure on Harris given the negative reviews from her first foreign trip earlier this year. In June, she visited Guatemala and Mexico in her diplomatic role to find solutions to stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. from Central America. But the trip's mission was overshadowed by self-inflicted wounds from Harris, including a high-profile interview in which she fumbled an answer about visiting the U.S.-Mexico border. Harris's allies have argued this trip offers the vice president another chance to boost her foreign policy portfolio, strengthening relationships in Southeast Asia.
Harris will become the first sitting vice president to visit Vietnam. A daughter of Indian and Jamaican immigrants, she also goes as the first U.S. Black and South Asian vice president. In Singapore, she will deliver a major speech on the importance of partnerships in Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific, a similar theme to her commencement speech for the United States Naval Academy, where she touched on some of the biggest threats to the nation and its armed forces, including the pandemic, cybersecurity, and climate in the context of economic security. Trade will also factor into the theme of global competition on the vice president's trip, as the U.S. grapples with the global microchip shortage. In Singapore, Harris will participate in a roundtable on supply chains aimed at tackling resilience, as well as meet with U.S. Embassy staff and families and hold a press conference. The vice president will also meet with government officials in Vietnam as she seeks to share the Biden administration's vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific, her office said, raising security issues, including in the South China Sea. This trip is a physical demonstration of the role that she plays, the senior White House official said. Afghanistan adds another dimension. While she travels in Asia next week, Afghanistan will likely remain at the forefront of the administration's focus back in Washington. Officials say the vice president will be briefed regularly on the situation in Afghanistan while abroad and will remain engaged with the interagency discussions in the administration. The vice president has received several briefings alongside the president as the precarious situation in Afghanistan unfolded, featured in photos of both in-person and virtual briefings over the past week. But officials declined to say whether she was present for last week's National Security Team crisis meeting convened by Biden, during which he was first briefed on the plan that had been drafted to draw down embassy personnel and send in U.S. forces to facilitate that effort because of the Taliban's rapid gains.
And no guidance was initially given to the press that Harris would appear at the president's address to the nation following the fall of Kabul, she was notably absent. It was later revealed that she remained behind the scenes, watching his speech from another room in the White House. "I do know that Joe Biden seeks her counsel in these big moments and these big decisions," the source familiar with the dynamic said. "He's always sought for her to be part of the decision-making process." Haley Soifer, a former national security advisor for Harris in the Senate, said she looks at this trip as a continuation of her former boss experience. But risks lie ahead for the vice president as she becomes the administration's highest-ranking official to travel abroad since the fall of Afghanistan. Foreign travel is one of the times where presidents are very visible. And they're also more exposed, said Joel Goldstein, a vice presidential historian. So, there's likely to be some occasions when she'll be asked about Afghanistan, and vice presidents speak with a large microphone, so there'll be attention to what she says, in a way that there isn't with many other officials.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe